Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Jordan here from Switchwatch. As my first review as an official member of the Switchwatch team, I have a review of Nightmare Boy from Badland Games. Thanks to them for providing a review code so I can tell you if it is worth your hard-earned cash or not. Now this is an odd-looking action platformer, but it is rather good-looking too. But is it any good? Well, let's find out. Nightmare Boy begins as young Billy heads off to bed. While reading his book, things take a turn to the surreal as his pillow transforms into a weird, monstrous creature threatening to take Billy away to Donnerop and present him as a gift to the Queen. There's a fair bit of mumbling and names being said, but because you've only just arrived in the game, it's all a little bit confusing at first. Who, where, what? After the intro though, the story isn't too much of a concern, and although there are storytelling elements, they don't play a huge part in the game, and you'll spend most of your time in the gameplay rather than taking in the narrative. Having been cursed and whisked away to this nightmare-like world, Billy has become zombified and tasked with somehow trying to wake up. From there you'll meet a handful of different characters, some friendly, some not so friendly. The story kind of peters away after the beginning, which is a shame, but due to the often painfully slow dialogue, you'll be rather thankful. As you explore the land, you'll come across trapped children who also can't wake up, and it seems to be your job to release them from the same nightmare as you. This does sort of come unexpectedly, as I don't remember the game explaining or mentioning trapped kids at all. I just happened upon them and suddenly it seemed to be the goal of the game. In the audio department of Nightmare Boy, it's mostly very positive. The soundtrack has been well crafted and gives you a very adventurous taste to the game. There's always some thumping drums to make you feel like you're on a determined mission to get to your goal no matter what. Each area has its own unique musical theme, so they really haven't cheaped out in this department. And there is variety too, as can be heard in the save room, which has a nice sweet piano melody that perfectly announces that you're in a safe area. The only negative I have to say about the audio is just one sound effect really bothered me. Billy landing just sounds weird. I can't put my finger exactly on what it is, but it sounds cheap, grainy, and too retro for its own good. I wouldn't mind, but you hear it constantly. In this regard, I turned the sound effects down a little and boosted the music, at which point I stopped noticing it. Visually, I think Nightmare Boy is quite a looker. It's retro with a modern twist, as in it would fit perfectly within the 16-bit era thematically, but it's modernized very well. While the environments are nice, with the lava cave section being particularly eye-catching, it's the characters that are the stars of the show. They really pop off the screen with their vibrancy, and Billy himself seems to have an extraordinary amount of animation frames. It's just very impressive, especially in handheld mode where the Nintendo Switch screen really shows it off nicely. The addition of slight scan lines really cements the overall modern retro look to it. I have to say there is one major issue regarding performance with Nightmare Boy in its current state. It's unfortunate to report that this game suffers from severe stability issues. During my playtime, I encountered multiple game crashes that sent me right back to the Switch's home screen. Most of them happened in the exact same spot every time, and it stunted my progress in the game. After 3 crashes, I decided to restart my Switch and try again. It crashed one more time in the same place, but the next time I was successful. It again later crashed almost at the end of the game. Each time it crashed, I lost a fair bit of progress thanks to the saving system, which I will mention later. Having to keep trekking through the same area just for it to keep crashing every time really took its toll on my enthusiasm for the game, which is a huge shame because up until that point I was thoroughly enjoying my time with it. As it's built using the Unity engine, something well known for its instability, it's just a shame that it impacted my time with it. It seems the developers have been made aware of this, so a patch may be incoming in the future. Okay, let's talk about the gameplay. The thing about the gameplay of Nightmare Boy is that it takes me back to an older time, back to the mid-90s on the Super Nintendo or Mega Drive, when these action platformers were basically every game ever. It's both a blessing and a curse at times. You walk around on a 2D plane jumping around on platforms, taking out enemies with your physical attack and collecting gems. It has a Metroidvania style to the gameplay too, where the more you progress, the more abilities you receive, meaning more areas you're able to reach. The special ability you're given off the bat is a fireball for attacking at further distances. The game moves at a fast pace, so you're never really too far away from acquiring the next one, usually after a boss or rescuing one of the many children. It won't be long until you get a nice wall jump, double jump, a defensive shield, and even more powerful magic attacks. These all take up energy, so you can't spam them all you want to, but your energy bar does regenerate over time. Initially, the game makes a very poor impression. The starting area really does not show the strong points of the gameplay at all. The first 5 minutes of playing this, I was genuinely preparing for the worst. The camera screen movements as Billy jumps up and down and turns direction is frankly stomach churning. Now in practice, for the most part of the game, it's not so noticeable as you're not constantly jumping up and down in the same parts or quickly turning. For some reason, as you're getting used to the controls, the intro is exactly that. I was having flashbacks of the worst kinds of mascot platformers of the past. Not only that, but in the first area, the amount of enemies that fly at you is insane compared to the rest of the game. It's just an epileptic attack on the senses, and you wonder what you've got yourself into. Once you're out of the first area though, the game is much more pleasant. Very good in fact. The controls are a little slippery and the camera movement is still over exuberant at times, but once you're in more well designed areas, the game comes to life. You quickly move from area to area, and you're never too far away from an exciting, unique boss battle, one of the game's highlights. It provides a solid challenge too. Standard enemies are rather aggressive, but it'll be the boss battles that will provide the greatest test of your skills. You'll be cursing at times, but when you finally nail that difficult part, you'll feel so good. Another thing that adds to the difficulty is the very interesting gimmick of killing the many harmless Mongos who dwell peacefully in this nightmare world. Right from the beginning, you'll see colourful Mr. Potato Head style creatures waddling around minding their own business, even with enemies around. You can kill them. It's not until a short while later you discover that they're kind of angry at you for massacring their kin. They'll forgive you this time for your naivety though, but won't forgive you again. Accidentally or purposely kill one again, and you'll be struck with a blow from the Mongo Guardian, Mongano. This can be quite troublesome, as sometimes it can seem almost impossible not to kill them as they walk across in the middle of a fight. I really find this an interesting concept, even though it's equally as frustrating. You don't take a huge amount of damage, but it can still interfere with the combat, and seems unfair at times. On the other hand, you do have to play slightly more cautiously and tactically, perhaps biding your time before you strike to allow the little Mongo to pass by safely. To add to the difficulty just a little more, there is no autosave feature. You must manually save in intermittent save rooms, administered by the Grim Reaper, of course. Oddly enough, you must pay to save your game with gems that you collect. Every time you save, the price goes up. This sounds horrendous, but in actuality it's rather insignificant, as you'll be collecting far more gems than you'll be able to spend saving your game. The big problem is that manual saves in certain areas does not mix well with the aforementioned crashes. You could lose some serious time if you're unlucky or careless. As for value, the game's starting price is £8.99, which compared to a lot of the competition out there is a very fair price. You'll get more bang for your buck here than you would with most other games of a similar ilk on the Nintendo Switch. In addition, I think Nightmare Boy has room for replayability with its multiple endings depending on what you collect and which dialogue options you select. So in my opinion, Nightmare Boy represents great value for your money. So what's my final verdict? Well, Nightmare Boy certainly doesn't give a first great impression, but stick with it for 20 minutes and you'll be sucked in, enjoying the boss battles, the power-ups and the exploration, quirks and all. The elements from the bad first impression still remain, but are somewhat mediated by a better level design and you becoming used to the extra slippery controls. It looks fantastic, it sounds great, and represents good value for your money these days. Sadly, in its current state at time of review, it's very unstable during the second half of the game with multiple crashes, which did suck much of my enthusiasm out. Of course, we can expect a patch sometime in the future, but it's still unfortunate. I'm going to award Nightmare Boy 7.5 out of 10. Okay guys, if you're a regular Switch watcher, then be sure to click that thumbs up button and leave a comment below. What do you guys think of Nightmare Boy? Do you plan to pick it up? If you're new here, why not consider subscribing? You'll get plenty of Switch reviews far into the future and it will definitely be worth it. As always, we appreciate you watching, so take care and we'll see you next time.